Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome. You're listening to Perfectly Healthy and Toned Radio with your host, Darren Fatman McDuck. And now, prepare to get fat. Hey, good evening. You're listening to Perfectly Healthy and Toned Radio. I am your host, Darren McDuffie, and welcome. Didn't have a show last week. I had internet problems, and I felt so lost without the internet. I don't know if you listening out there where you don't have your phone, you forget, you go to work one day and you forget your phone and you feel lost. I felt that exact same way and had some choice words for AT&T, but now we're back in the groove of things and should not have any problems with the show from here on out. And I have some interesting guests that are going to be coming on the show. Tonight I have Dani Walker, and we'll introduce her in a few. And next week I'll have a young lady by the name of Melissa Bankley, and she'll be talking about body image. You know, certain people out there have body image issues, and she'll be telling you how to change those body image issues. I'm also going to reschedule the show with Victoria Taylor from themonklife.com. And I'm going to working with Victoria now to schedule that show, and she's pretty busy. And then the first week of February, I will have Dr. Tom O'Brien. He'll be talking about gluten sensitivity, which is a big show for me because I found out that I was gluten sensitive about 3 or 4 years ago, and I haven't eaten gluten ever since then. And I was able to actually cure my arthritis. I know I'm not supposed to be saying cure on the air, but I'm going to say remission. My arthritis went into remission just by giving up gluten. So those are some shows that are coming up in the future that you will definitely want to tune in for. But tonight I have Dani Walker, and I actually followed Dani Walker secretly for about 2 years. She was one of the people that I started following when I didn't really know anything about the internet. I didn't know anything about health, and I thought that she had a really interesting site, and we were kind of on the same core principles of giving up prescriptions. Me coming from the pharmaceutical background, I knew what prescriptions did, and her just being someone who helped her significant other overcome a disease called sarcoidosis. So very happy to have her on the show, and I'm just going to read Dani's bio right here, and hopefully I can read on air. It just happens that when I get on air, I simply cannot read, but let's try it. So Dani Walker from EducationBeatsMedication.com is a lifelong wellness warrior and creator of Education Beats Medication Total Wellness Series, where wellness professionals teach you how to think outside the prescription because your health depends on it. Her expertise is in natural healing, sarcoidosis, and online marketing. So that's just a brief bio of Dani Walker, and I'm going to bring Dani on, and we'll get started with the show. Good evening, Dani. How are you?
I'm doing great, Darren. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Good to have you on the show. And I don't think you know that I stalked your website for about 2 years before actually reaching out to you and getting you on the show. But in the back of my mind, I always had that I wanted to do something with nutrition, and I thought that maybe one day I'll start a show, and maybe one day I will invite her on my show. And I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show.
Of course. I'm honored that you invited me. I think that's so cool. I love the Internet. You never know who's looking at your stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that intrigued me about what you did was obviously the sarcoidosis thing, but it was attached to someone, and I posted this on Facebook, and it was Bernie Mac. And I remember when Bernie Mac died, I was so sad. I thought he was a great comedian. He passed away in 2008, but I remember them mentioning an autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis. And at the time, I didn't really look it up. I'm just like, oh, well, whatever. I really wasn't that deep into the whole autoimmunity thing. And then as I started to study more about nutrition and get into autoimmune diseases, it started to intrigue me more, and I realized that you were an expert on that. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on the show. And also the fact that for those of you out there that know that I am African American, and I realized that from reading the research on sarcoidosis that it affects Caucasians as well as African Americans, but in the African American population, sometimes it can get progressively worse, and that always intrigued me. So I really wanted to have you on the show to talk about it. Now, before we get into just talking about sarcoidosis, can you kind of tell me how you got on this journey and how you ended up understanding more about sarcoidosis and getting to the point where you wanted to just take this disease into your own hands, take your husband's disease into your own hands, and find out a natural means to cure it or a natural means to put it into remission?
Oh my gosh! Well, I feel like I really have been. I'm a lifelong wellness warrioress. I really am. I'm a warrior. I'm just not going to give up, and there's always got to be a better way. And so I've always been more of a natural person and going, if we have a scrape or a cut or the kids have a headache or they've got a cough or a cold or something, we always end up at the health food store first. So what happened was our kids were 4 and 8, and, we're young, this young married couple, and life is grand, and you feel like all is well. I was 28 years old. Jack was 31, but he had pneumonia when he was a baby, and so it was pretty common for him to get bronchitis. And after 30-some years of knowing exactly what it's going to feel like to get bronchitis, he would feel it coming on, and we would go right to the health food store, and we'd do the colloidal silver and the wellness formula and this and that. Well, 2003 was the fall of 2003. We ended up at the health food store for the bronchitis, and a few weeks went by. Sure enough, he got through the bronchitis without any antibiotics, but he had these swollen lymph nodes that didn't go away, which that was not normal. And so we went back to the health food store and tried a 30-day cleanse and thought, well, maybe there's just a little bit of an infection still going on. And 30 days later, no, the lymph nodes were actually more swollen. And so then, being the mom and just a woman, I think we worry more than men do about things like that. I started in my mind like, oh, my goodness, what if it's lymphoma or what, the worst thing it could possibly be? We need to go to the doctor and get this checked. And so that was, late 2003, very late, like probably December, that he ended up at the doctor just, getting a blood draw and seeing what was going on, if it was an infection. And it wasn't until August of 2004 that he was finally diagnosed with sarcoidosis. Mm-hmm. And those 6-7 months were a lot of doctor's visits back and forth. And we live in a really small rural community. So a doctor's visit to a pulmonologist or a rheumatologist or an ENT is a 3-hour drive. And so he was doing a lot of driving back and forth and trying to figure out what was going on and getting poked and prodded and blood draws and you name it, and CAT scans. And finally they did a tonsillectomy because they could not figure out what was going on. They thought maybe he had this, horrible infection in his lymph nodes, and doing a tonsillectomy would help clear it out. And when they did that, they actually removed a lymph node and did a biopsy on it, and it came out sarcoidosis was the diagnosis that we got. And I'll never forget the day, because I'd never heard that word before in my life. This, it's a rare disease, like you said with Bernie Mac. Reggie White also died from complications due to sarcoidosis.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and people don't know, because the thing is it's complications due to the disease. They don't just go right out and state, hey, he had sarcoidosis, and that's what, ended up killing him. But it's complications that are caused. They get pneumonia because it causes granulous tumors in your lungs, or it can cause granulous tumors in your eyes, any organ of your body, lymph nodes, lungs, eyes, brain, your skin. And so anyway, Jack was diagnosed had this biopsy, and then the internet is either our best friend or our worst enemy. So I go home and I'm thinking in my mind, is that worse than lymphoma? What the heck is that? What does it mean? Is it autoimmune? Is it not? Which is a whole nother controversy. It's a mystery, sarcoidosis is. And so because of that, kind of just like curveball in our life that we never saw coming, it helped me. It helps our whole family realize what's really important in life. It's not how successful your business is or what kind of car you drive or how big your house is. It's the time you get to spend with the people you love that are around you. Those are the precious moments that you might not get back, and that was like staring. It was in our face. I had no idea what was in store. Neither did Jack, but we were going to fight it to the bitter end. And he did 3 years of medical treatment because we were scared. We didn't know what else to do. And after 3 years of medical treatment, he was on 6 medications. They wanted to put him on a 7th, and he was, 34 years old. And he said, no, there's got to be a better way. And even if there's not, I'm going to trade this stuff in and just live a quality life without all these side effects for however long I can.
Yeah,
and that's been 5 years.
I was going to get into that. You said he had 6 prescriptions, and one of those was prednisone, and they use prednisone for a multitude